Hello chess family, it's me National Master Jesse James, and today we're going over open with the center pawn. Yep, it's that simple. By controlling these four squares right here, e4, d4, and d5, here you're going to be getting a very strong center, meaning you're going to be able to control the board. And you can either go kingside with the kingside attack or go queenside and try to win your opponent's material. Let's take a look at this with the game by Morphe, showing us, well, how to do it. Here we start with pawn to e4, and here black, not knowing the strategies, goes ahead and plays pawn to h6. Already we know this is just not a very good move. One of the things I will say about playing pawn to e4 is that already it lets out two pieces, the bishop and the queen. What did pawn h6 do? It doesn't control the center. And well, I guess the rook can go up to h7 here, but what does it really do? So, your turn. What do you play here? A lot of beginners will play knight to f3. But here I point out to them, what's better than one pawn in the center? That's two pawns. So what do you play? Pawn to d4. Again, black's just not paying attention. He plays pawn to a5. Yes, this does let the rook out, but this is going to be a losing move as the bishop will just take. All right, the next pieces you want to move is going to be your knight and bishop. Typically, we have the rule of develop your knights before bishops, but here, well, Morphe decided to bring out the bishop. Here, there's two good squares to move the bishop. What are they? Hopefully you see it. It's bishop d3 or c4. Don't go to b5 as you can just get kicked away. And bishop b2, well, it doesn't really attack anything. Bishop d3 is typically where the master puts it, and c4 is for the hopeful amateur. Yes, I know c4 attacks on f7, but just remember, whenever the king's uncastled, like here, it attacks the weakest pawn, but when it goes to d3, it gets ready to attack the king whenever he's castled, which is, again, the weakest pawn when castled. All right, so where does Morphe put the bishop? Of course, he puts it to d3. Black plays pawn b6, finally letting out the bishop over here, which is a move that, well, again, not really what you're supposed to be doing. Remember, bring out the knights first and control the center. All right, what's the next piece Morphe wants to move? It's the knight. Remember, you want to try to castle in 5 moves or less. Here, there's 3 squares you can move it to, but only 2 of them are good. Is it h3, f3, or to e2? Here, believe it or not, it's actually going to be h3, which is the worst move. Just remember, knights like being in the center where they control the most squares. So here, either f3 or e2 was the correct answer. In this game, well, e2 gets played. Knight f3 typically is a better move, but we're going to see why knight e2 got played later on with Morphe's idea. All right, black finally understands the idea and plays pawn to e6. Finally, he tries to take control of the center and maybe get the bishop out so that he can castle. Notice here, black doesn't even have the option of playing e5 to control more squares in the center because, well, we can just take. Going back to the game, after pawn to e6, what does white do now? Remember, control the center, get your pieces out, and then king safety, we need to castle. Already at this point, white is in a winning position. The computer is saying this is a +2, meaning white is up 2 extra pawns, which to a beginner means, well, how is that possible? It's only 5 moves into the game, and, well, I mean, what has black done wrong? Well, here, ask yourself, what has white done right? Here, white has 2 pawns in the center. How is black doing? No pawns really in the center except for this little pawn right here. How many pieces has black developed? Remember, pawns are not pieces, so here white has 2 pieces out and black has none. He just has random pawn moves over here. And the last one is king safety. How is your king doing? Well, white has the king in the castle over here, and black's king, well, still in the center. It should be a no-brainer. Here, white just has a huge advantage. All right, here black went ahead and played bishop a6. What is black's plan? Very simply, black wants to trade off the bishop for the bishop. Here you have 2 pieces out, and black only has 1. What's the best move here? Here you want to stop black from trading off pieces because the pieces is how you're going to actually attack your opponent, and then also control the center. So what do you play? Pawn to c4. I know one of the rules is, at least for beginners, a potzer sees a trade, a potzer makes a trade. Here, bishop takes a6 would not be good. After bishop takes, knight takes, here you see the only thing you've done is, well, remember you had 2 pieces out, now you only have 1, and they have 1. So you help equalizing the game here. Pawn c4 is a much stronger move that was played by Morphe. All right, black goes ahead and plays knight to f6, and here we get to actually utilize or use why the center is so important. Now, you can ask this to a lot of beginners. Why is it important to control the center? Typically, they're just like, you control it. Yes, but why do you control it? The reason why you control the center is to push back your opponent's pieces and control more squares. Here, with the knight going to f6, we can do that and push back our opponent. What do you play? It won't take a strong player long to play pawn to e5. Here we're kicking the knight. This is a $1 piece, $3 piece. By kicking the knight back here, well, now they're going to have less pieces in the game. And the knight must move back to h7 here. This is probably the best square for it. Notice if you go to g4, the knight is actually trapped here. There's no squares for it to move to. So simple chess. You just play h3 and it's trapped. You're going to end up winning it for a pawn. Okay. What about playing the knight to h5? Again, the same idea. The knight has nowhere good to go. So what do you play here? Simple chess. You get to play pawn to g4. Here you might say, hey, I thought we're not supposed to move pawns in front of our king. Yes, this is true, but also ask yourself, what pieces can black really attack you with? All these pieces are all asleep over here. And, well, you're just going to take a knight over here. And the king is actually pretty safe because, again, it's not really a weakness if they can't even attack you. Back to the game. Here the knight went to h7. He didn't want to go back to g8 as this would get in the way from trying to castle. So knight h7 got played. And here white goes ahead and tries to get the rook into the game without even moving. How was this done? Here, this is why Morphy put the knight to e2. Pawn went to f4. How is the rook in the game now? Well, the farther you push the pawn forward, the more squares this rook will control. In fact, if you can imagine, if we play pawn f5 and trade off, now this rook has a whole open file to it. So the rook is actually very active at this point. All right, what's the next piece black wants to move? Very simply, here we know it's going to be the bishop. Why the bishop? Because black needs to castle. Now that you see that you want to move the bishop, where do you move it to? e7, d6, c5, or b4? a3 is obviously a little bit silly, but I guess c5 and d6 are too. Why? Because pawns just take, which leaves only two squares, b4 or e7. That's how a chess player thinks. They find the best ideas, and then they're able to start predicting what will happen. That's why a lot of beginners are like, how is it possible to do that? You don't typically look at the bad moves. You only look at the good ones. If you try to calculate everything, that's just impossible and a waste of time. So where's the bishop going to move to? Here it goes to e7. Hopefully you thought ahead a little bit and saw that if you do play bishop b4, notice it doesn't attack anything, and here white can just kick it away. All right, back to the game. Bishop b7 got played. If you know anything about Morphy, you know that he likes to do kingside attack or try to attack his opponent's king. So what do you play here? Here we're going to go ahead and try to bring the queen over to the king side. This is the king side. This is the queen side. Here we want to bring the queen over to the king side. Why is that? Well, if we want to attack the king, you want to use your best piece. So find a two-move maneuver or plan to bring the queen over to the king side. Did you find it? Here we're going to go ahead and play knight to g3. I know a lot of people will miss this. This is the best way to do it. I think a lot of people here are going to try the queen e1 g3 plan. Not a bad idea, but here, what's better than moving one piece over? Moving two. Here, after knight g3, not only do you allow the queen to move over to the king side, but you also brought the knight over here, getting ready to attack too. All right, black went ahead and played pawn d5. A very nice try here for black. Black is trying to open up the center and, well, make some trades here. But if you're a strong chess player, just know, what do you do when your opponent attacks you? The best thing you can do is counterattack or attack them back. So here, Morphy just comes up with his own plan. Here, notice by taking, this helps out black. They can make some trades over here. Bishop takes, queen takes on d5, and you help them develop their pieces. Not too good for him. Notice that, well, I mean, you could try to en passant here, but this is also bad, as after pawn takes, you see that white lost some central control. Okay, going back. Here, what do you play instead? Remember, make your own threats. Develop your queen with a threat. Hint, look at the pawns over here on the king side. Look for unprotected pieces and make your own threat. What do you play? Here you play queen to g4, developing with a threat. And here, black went ahead and castles. Makes sense. He gets his king to safety and defends the pawn on g7. Actually, this is a losing move as well. Typically, castling is a good side. Morphy has been planning this since the beginning. As you can see, he actually has a lot of pieces attacking on the king side. 5 to be precise. He has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces attacking over here on the king side. How many pieces does black have defending? Let's count them. 1, 2, 3. Maybe we can count 4. When you have more attackers than defenders, you should attack, and that's exactly what Morphy does. Here, we're going to try to attack the weak g7 pawn over here. Why? The queen's already attacking it, so we just need another attacker to go ahead and put pressure on it. So, what do you play? Here we get to play knight to h5, threatening queen takes g7, the deadly kiss checkmate. In the real game, black actually played pawn g5 and got into a losing position very fast. Here we're going to go ahead and finish this up, as I believe I've gone over the main idea, which was, again, try to use a center pawn and develop your pieces with threats. So here we're going to go ahead and say black played pawn g6. Can you finish this game up fast? White to move and win. All right, hopefully you thought about it. Hopefully you tried to figure it out. The idea is that the queen wants to try to get to g7 here for checkmate, but the pawns are blocking him. So what do? Here we get to sacrifice with bishop takes on g6 exclam. Typically, it's not a good idea to give a piece of higher value for lower value. This is a sacrifice. We give a piece of higher value for lower value. But if you're able to win with this, well, the game's over. It doesn't matter that you've given up a piece of $3 value for one of one. So if black doesn't take back, they're just losing. Here we're going to say they just take, and now it's checkmate in 2. Queen takes g6 check, King to h8, CPR, capture, protect, or run. Here the king had to run over to h8, and now checkmate in 1. What do you play? Simple chess. You play queen to g7 for check and mate. Alright guys, hope you enjoyed this, and we'll see you in the next video.